One of the most iconic figures in the formation of Kaizer Chiefs was murdered before he could see the club become a giant in South African football. Ewert Nene, an iconic figure in South Africa, the man responsible for Chiefs being known as the Glamour Boys. He always wanted Chiefs to be unique in the way they looked and the way they played, and that's still embedded in the Amakhosi's DNA to this day. You see, Nene was passionately driven by a desire to turn Chiefs into a formidable force, more powerful than Orlando Pirates. He also wanted Chiefs to do things differently. He required his players to dress sharply and be fashion conscious. And above all, he wanted Chiefs to play differently and forge its own unique style and identity. Now let's go back to the beginning where it all started. You see, before Kaizer Chiefs, Ewert Nene was team manager for Orlando Pirates. And it is said that he was blessed with natural leadership qualities and proved to be a sharp administrator. He became great friends with the club top striker Kaizer Motaung. But Motaung later left Pirates to go play overseas for Atlanta Chiefs in the United States. Now Nene had been expelled as team manager at Orlando Pirates, together with star players Thomas Zero Johnson, Rata Mokgotleng and Edward Msomikoza, after the trio had gone to feature as guest players for a team in Botswana without seeking permission. Now Nene had stood up for the players against team management. You see, he was upset by the fact that another player, Kaizer Chiefs, had also played and coached during the same period in Swaziland, but there had been no consequences for him. He felt there was favoritism from the management. Now eventually he had a fallout with the Pirates management team. It is alleged that he was subsequently beaten up by a crowd of hooligans believed to be Pirates supporters, all because he had given a lift to the three players. The message was that, as an official, it was inappropriate for him to be friends with players who had been found guilty for not being loyal to the team. Now, after that incident, it is said that he took a break from the cutthroat soccer business to manage Sipho Hotstix Mabusa's band, The Beaters, which was still new at the time. You see, this was the late 60s, when the hippie movement in the US was big. Now, they went to Woodstock Festival in 1969 outside of New York State with the band to go experience Jimi Hendrix live and other dope performers of the day. Now that's where Nene adopted the phrase of love and peace, which Chiefs is known for to this day. You see, love and peace was a hippie stoner thing that was very popular at the time, especially with the hippie crowd. After they had got back, Nene was still yearning to be part of the beautiful game, but without the politics. It so happened that during that period, Kaizer Motaung returned from Atlanta Chiefs in the United States, where he had been voted Rookie of the Year. Now, at exactly that turbulent period, the stars were aligning. You see, Kaizer was not impressed by the expulsion of his friends. When Nene and Kaizer came together, a plan was formed. Kaizer, being a loyal Buccaneer, he gracefully accepted the decision of management, but he however requested permission from Pirates to stage a series of friendly games under the Kaizer 11 banner and asked whether he could utilize the suspended trio. Permission was granted, and the Kaizer 11 show hit the road across the country,
forcing the white team into making mistakes and giving out chances. Then, in the 32nd minute, against the run of play, Hellenic scored, and it seemed that the bugbear of black sides being unable to beat white teams was still around. Despite protests, the goal stood, although it seemed that the Hellenic striker was offside. But then the Amakhosi struck back after a spell of grimly determined play to make it 1-1. And eventually, just 1 minute before time, the Amakhosi were rewarded for their unceasing efforts after a series of short passes with a goal to give them the match 2-1.
Those who know him say Ewert Nene was a master of hype and a marketing genius who contributed remarkably to Kaizer Chiefs' overnight success as a sporting brand. Now, he was also a brilliant talent scout who almost single-handedly assembled a formidable side of remarkably talented footballers that formed Chiefs' earliest team. He even managed to sign players from neighboring states. Now, this is during the tough times of segregation. One afternoon, with Orlando Pirates hot on the heels of one youngster by the name of Patrick Nzoleng, Ewert was always a step ahead by driving to Randfontein and convincing the youngster to join Chiefs. He had him wrapped in a blanket in the back seat of his car, a white Impala, so no one could identify the youngster. It is now known history that Ace Nzoleng went on to become one of the best players to have graced South Africa. And he caused a sensation when he acquired the services of Jairzinho, the great Brazilian forward who starred in the 1970 games. This was to show that no one was out of bound for Nene. He used to travel the length and breadth of the country to watch amateur soccer on dusty fields in townships and remote villages. That's how he picked exceptionally gifted players like Ace. The day he was killed, he was supposed to have been accompanied to KwaThema by Kaizer Chiefs on their way to go convince a young teenage Dladla to come play for Kaizer Chiefs. They had made prior arrangements to travel together, him and Kaizer. But after the day's training session, Mutaung was still in the shower when Nene impatiently ordered Malombo, who was a Chiefs player, to come with him instead. He felt that Kaizer was delaying him. When they arrived in KwaThema, although they knew the street where teenage Dladla lived, they didn't know the house number, so they asked a group of boys who pointed out the house to them. There was a combi parked outside the house, so Nene parked his own car a short distance from the combi and sent a boy to go inside the house and call teenage. Now, unbeknown to them, members of Pilkington United Brothers, the team that teenage Dladla belonged to, were inside the house when the boys notified the household that two men who were sitting in a car that had Johannesburg registration number plates were asking for teenage. They all rushed out of the house. The boy pointed at them in the car and they immediately sensed trouble. It is said that they had been armed with machetes and knobkiris. Now, from their aggregated demeanor, the two guys in the car knew they were in trouble. The group caught the guys off guard. They didn't even have the time to think. They just got out of the car and split. They ran in different directions. The group chased these guys, but Malombo, who was the Chiefs player at the time, outran the group. Now, he didn't know KwaThema well enough, but he found his way to the local police station. At the charge office, Malombo explained what had transpired. Some of the cops knew Ewert Nene very well, so they ordered him to get into a police van and they dashed to teenage Dladla's home, where they found Nene's car still stationary where they had parked it. Now, Malombo said after looking for the Kaizer Chiefs manager, there was simply no sign of Nene. But news traveled fast in townships. They soon learned that Nene had been stabbed multiple times and he had been rushed to the local hospital. They made another desperate dash to the hospital, but sadly they discovered on arrival that he had died. The tragedy marked the end of an era about a man that had revolutionized local football with his gift. You see, teenage Dladla was described as an exceptional youngster at the time, but there was understandably anger, frustration, rejection, confusion, and a deep sense of loss, with some players blaming teenage for the tragic passing of Nene. However, others felt that it was not his fault and he should be allowed to join the team. It is said that the first day teenage joined, at training there was tension, but the minute they started playing, he was so mesmerizing that he quickly won everybody over, and he was embraced and accepted into the team. Even though teenage joined the club in the same year, Ewert never got to see him dazzling fans with his trickery. Teenage became an instant hit with the Chiefs supporters. He said himself that one of the highlights of his career was in his first season when he played 2 games alongside Kaizer Chiefs. His performance improved every year, and in 1981 he broke the record by winning all awards and trophies reserved for players.